Wise people always remind us of a very special way of reading the Bible. They say, read the Bible in the present tense and replace the figures in the Bible with your name. And there you will see how hope arises in you.
मूलं समीक्ष्य यत्र गम्यता सर्वेषां मार्गं तथैव प्रवृत्ति मूलं समीक्ष्य यत्र गम्यता सर्वेषां मार्गं तथैव प्रवृत्ति.
My sisters and brothers, a very hearty welcome to each one of you to this monthly recollection talk. We are in fact entering the Jubilee Year. A specific theme is already proposed before us to reflect and meditate over: Pilgrims of Hope. In the given situation of our life today, and in the concrete struggles that we encounter day to day, we are finding it, in fact, very difficult to have this concept of hope developed and kept on lingering in our lives. I'm just still imagining that terrific incident that we all encountered a month back. A fine morning, we got up with a shocking news around us that a village in the district of Wayanad in Kerala is found missing. It is not one or two persons are found missing. A village itself is found missing due to the landslide that happened there. It shook the whole of India. Why India? Even the Holy Father responded to it with his prayer support. Naturally, a painful moment in the life of the people. Can we still hope? What about these people who are now left behind with all their dear ones gone away into vacuum and all their properties lost, especially their houses no more existing? Can they have hope? Yes, it's in this context that we are taking up this particular topic, Pilgrims of Hope. I'm reminded of that wonderful love song in the first letter to the Corinthians, where St. Paul mentions about the three factors that can make us to live our life in spite of the contradictions that we face in our life. The three theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. Certain times we need to evaluate and understand that human life is a journey with all its ups and downs. In the concrete context of the Catholic Church's canonization of a person, very often we think he or she is canonized because a miracle has happened in their name. But mostly we need to know canonization process in the Catholic Church is very long just because it is founded on the aspect of the three theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. And in this process, hope is taken and considered as the most important one. All of us are called to be saints. That's why St. Paul, in all his epistles, addresses the Christians whom he is writing to, calling them saints of Corinth, saints of Rome, saints of Thessalonica, saints of Galatia, etc. Yes, we are all called to be saints, whether we are canonized or not. But what makes us saints is that particular aspect of the theological virtues of hope, faith, and charity. There's a beautiful incident mentioned in the life of Thomas à Kempis. You know very well, after the Holy Bible, the book that is read the most is The Imitation of Christ, written by Thomas à Kempis. It is said many people who read this book were later canonized as saints of the church. But interestingly, Thomas à Kempis is still not canonized. There is a strange but interesting reason given for it. It is said, after the burial of Thomas à Kempis, a few months later, his coffin was once again opened, and they found something very strange in it. The mortal remains of Thomas à Kempis was lying upside down in the coffin. Normally, we know a person, when he is buried, his face is towards the sky. But in the case of Thomas à Kempis, his body was lying upside down in the coffin. There were a lot of interesting questions asked about it. And one of the reasons found for this was, most probably, Thomas à Kempis, who was buried even before he was dead, was now turning up and down in the coffin, hopelessly, and finally died hopeless in the coffin, upside down. And that, in fact, is still preventing his canonization. It looks strange, but at the same time, it emphasizes one thing. Until and unless we hold on to that wick of hope, we will never be able to reach up to that concept of holiness and survival. Yes, my sisters and brothers, we need to hope. In spite of the contradictions that are happening around us, we need to hope. And that is the call of a Christian today. I take that particular passage from the letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 24. St. Paul writes to the Romans saying, "In this hope we were saved, for we hope in what we have not seen." Who hopes in what he sees? Add this particular statement with that of Romans 8:28. There he writes, "For those who love God, he turns everything for good." Not that everything is good, he turns everything for good. Yes, my sisters and brothers, I believe we need to teach our younger generation now on a way to survive. The book, the Bible, is not merely a book that teaches us to live. It is helping us to survive in the odds of our lives. Yes, we need to look up to the heavens still with hope that God can intervene in our lives. Let me take 5 points based on the biblical backgrounds which can stimulate in us a sense of hope for the future. The very first point that I would suggest before us is to have a willpower or a desire to live further. If we take the Gospel of John chapter 5 verses 1 to 9, we would find there that beautiful incident about the man who was lying down at the pool of Bethsaida. He was paralyzed, and for how many years is he there? 38 years. And that's a long time of his life. The best part of his life is already done, perhaps. And that's where Jesus encounters him. And you know, each time when Jesus comes to a person to encounter him, to heal him, or to touch him, and to make a difference in his life, he always puts a question before him. And this time too, Jesus asks him the question, "What do you wish me to do for you?" My dear sisters and brothers, it's interesting. To a man who is lying at the pool for 38 years, Jesus is asking the question, "What do you wish me to do for you?" "What else, Lord?" then I should be able to get up and walk and go away from here. But Jesus, knowing very well, psychologically perhaps, the mindset of this man who had been lying there for such a long time, now has already developed a mindset saying that I only need a blanket now. Anyway, I can't do it. Let me sleep peacefully here at the poolside. Yes, it is there that the Lord asks him the question. If you wish to get up and walk, you should will it. Otherwise, you will be lost. This again is an invitation for us. In every situation of my life, I should have a desire to get up. We have that Indian story of a little child desiring to have the fruit of that tree, and when the tree realizes the child's desire, bending itself to the child. Yes, until and unless we raise our hope towards God, God cannot work in us. Desire, develop a willpower so that we can survive the ordeal. And this is something very special invitation for us. I'm always afraid of that statement of Job. What I feared happened to me. When I am afraid, it happens to me. Let me rise above the ordeals of my life and have that willpower to withstand, still hoping that the good Lord who has begun things in my life will complete it faithfully and fruitfully. The second aspect that is necessary for us is to understand what is still left behind. Yes, although things seem to be gone beyond my limits, I need to still believe there are many things that are still left behind. You all might have heard about a very famous Franciscan priest named Christopher Coelho. He lived from 1932 to 2002. A very famous musician, artist, and photographer. At the one phase of his life, he was so much interested in photography. He went through all the northeastern states of our country and took many photos. For that time, the camera that he had was a very costly one. In one such travel time, unfortunately for him, someone stole his camera. He was so sad. He went to the nearby police station and filed a case. As he was coming out of the police station, two policemen were standing there and they were saying to each other, "Who can ever find this camera now?" Desperate, disillusioned, sad, Christopher Coelho came home. As he was sitting in his room, he just looked around. There was an old guitar that he used to always play. There were a lot of books that he had bought once upon a time, which were left behind unread. Now he looks at this guitar, these books, and tells himself one statement: I have only lost my camera, but my fingers are still there. My eyes are still there. I will survive this ordeal, this struggle of my life. Yes, my brothers, my sisters, it's time for us to look back. It's an important aspect of our life that we commit ourselves once again to that possibility of our life. That's why I'm very much interested and enchanted by that particular miracle worked by Jesus, the miracle of the multiplication of the loaves. What I'm looking at in this particular miracle is not merely that aspect of the divine intervention in the multiplication of the loaf, which I do not deny at all, but I would like to see another side of this miracle. I've read a narration given by Leonardo Tolstoy about this particular miracle from an ethical and moral point of view. What's happening there? Jesus is together with his disciples and men who were about 5,000 who were listening to him. Now, it has become evening. There is no bread for them to eat. And the disciples tell Jesus, please send them away so that they can go in the nearby villages or townships and buy something for themselves and eat. And the Lord tells them, you give them something to eat. And they say, how can we feed this many people? And it's then that they found there was one boy who was there who had with him 5 loaves and 2 fish. My dear sisters and brothers, this number matters. 5 loaves and 2 fish. It is said normally in the context of the Jewish meal, what is necessary for a normal meal is just 3 loaves or 3 bread. We have that beautiful narration of Jesus. A man comes to his friend in the middle of the night and tells him, would you mind to lend me 3 loaves because a friend of mine has come who has not had his dinner. 3 loaves. But then why this boy is having 5 loaves with him? Yes. As he was traveling with Jesus, a journey which had not defined its timing, he understood there may be many people who will be joining me in this journey. Some of them may not have taken their bread with them. So let me take another 2 more so that I can lend it to them if they are in need. There were perhaps many others who came with 5 loaves, and therefore the multiplication happens. Yes, you create a new perspective of your life when you are able to lend your support to the other who is in need. Hope arises when human hands are put together. As I mentioned, the miraculous happening of the multiplication of the loaves is not denied here. But on the other side, the human effort with which we need to lift up the hope of the humanity can never be denied as well. Yes, we have to look back and see what is still left behind. A third aspect that we need to develop in order to have this concept of the hope in us is to light up the wick of faith. We need to develop a new sense of faith today. That's where we have to journey with our own very selves in faith in Jesus. There is a very famous Puritan writer and an author called John Bunyan. He has written a very famous book called Pilgrim's Progress. In this book, he mentions there are more than 3,000 blessings in the Bible. Quoting the book of Numbers, chapter 19, verse 23, he says, God is not a man to say a lie to us. If God has promised us his blessings, he will give it to us, and guaranteed our tomorrow will be better than our today. Yes, my sisters and brothers, that is an aspect of our faith in God. God never fails in his promises. He keeps his commitment to the humanity. We only need to lift up our faith to him and tell him, Lord, I believe that you will still work in my life. There's a beautiful narration about a man who was thrown into the -degree water by a king because he did things that were not befitting to the king's liking. He was thrown in the night in the pool, and everyone thought he would die there. In the water, which is of -degree, he was looking up and he saw a little lamp burning at the window of the king. He focused on that lamp, the possibility of light and life therein, and survived the night. In the morning, when the king came, the man was still alive. They pulled him out of the water, and the king asked him, "How did you manage to survive this cold water?" And he says, "My Lord King, I survived it because I saw a little lamp that was burning at your window, and the light in me still kept burning." Yes, faith in God and in His promises will always keep us going. A fourth aspect of our life in hope is to live in the present. Yes, my sisters and brothers, to live in the present is not to pay the tax for the past. Most of us live in our past, or at least pay the tax of our past experiences. We need to get out of those chains of the past and live in the present. And that's why that particular incident in the life of Lot enchants me a lot. The Lord says, "Run away from the city now, but one condition: you and your family should never turn back and look." Lot did that, but his wife turned back and became a pillar of salt. When you cling on to your past mistakes, past failures, and never are willing to get out of it, you will become naturally a pillar of salt. One of the most important things that is repeatedly said by Jesus in the gospel is, "Today, this day, it will happen to you. Today, you will be in paradise with me. Today is the acceptable day." Yes, Jesus always insisted on this aspect of the day, this day which we need to make use at its best. As a result, the past need not be working on us anymore. We have today, which will be the building stone for the future. That's why wise people always remind us of a very special way of reading the Bible. They say, read the Bible in the present tense and replace the figures in the Bible with your name, and there you will see how hope arises in you. And a final step, my dear sisters and brothers, that I would propose before you to raise up this aspect of hope is, be people of adaptation. Be people of adaptation. It is said, very many varieties of species in the world are no more existing. Not only the dinosaurs, but many kinds of ants and lizards are also no more existing in this world. The only one kind of creatures that survive every ordeal, perhaps, is the cockroach. There is a survival dimension that is mentioned in the context of their life. They adapt themselves to different life situations. People need today this adaptation. Yes, there are certain things that have happened in my life. There are certain tragedies that have happened in my life. But I just cannot cling on to those tragedies and spend the rest of my life. I need to rise up and see the light that is burning above me and have that wick of faith brightened in front of me. There is a beautiful prayer which is very often recited by the Alcoholic Anonymous. And that prayer is known as the prayer of serenity. This prayer always gives us some sense of hope. It goes like this: God, give me the courage to change what I can change. God, teach me to endure what I cannot change. God, help me to become aware of the difference between the above two. Yes, this is something that we all need to develop, a sense of the prayer of serenity. There are certain things in my life which I cannot change. There are certain things that I can change, and let me change it. And there are moments where I need to pray, help me to understand what I can change and what I cannot change. Yes, my brothers and sisters, we are all pilgrims of hope. And this invitation to hope in the midst of struggles and problems is a great challenge for us today. Most of us give in to desperation when tragedies happen. Let us not do that. Yet let us also stand by those people who are struggling in their life. Support them whatever way we can, not only through our prayers, lifting up our hands to God, of course, at the same time, lending our hands and hearts to serve them in their difficulties. We are pilgrims of hope. St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 24 says, "In this hope we were saved." And in the letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, he says, "For those who love him, he turns everything for good." Let us hope and trust in the providence of God. Amen.
मूलं समीक्ष्य यत्र गम्यताम् सर्वेषां मार्गं तथैव प्रवृत्तिः